Good to see you. A really important topic today. What happens if you die without a will? Despite potentially devastating consequences, 54% of Americans don't have a will, leaving estate planning up to a complicated range of state laws. So, who needs a will? Because a lot of us assume they're for the very wealthy, but 1 in 5 Americans with a million or more still doesn't even have a will.
Right. So the big thing here is, who needs it? The most important way that I kind of explain it is if you have any sort of assets or you have anybody that you're trying to protect, at that point you need some sort of legal documents, whether that's a will or a trust or anything in between. But having that simple will, completed, I want my assets to be distributed, this way or that way at my death. I think is very, very important.
hmm And if you die without a will, your loved ones may get nothing, especially if they are an unmarried partner or stepchildren who are left out under the law in almost every scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah. The biological children, any blood relative, usually can lay claim to some sort of assets. But once you start getting into stepchildren, now all of a sudden you need to make sure that all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. That they are adopted children, and even that can
hmm
change and vary by state. So you want to be careful of that. But having that will and naming those beneficiaries as a portion of your estate is very important, and you can go in there and name anybody that you want to.
hmm And you kind of touched on this already, but I know you have a few tips for everybody. And the first one is pretty straightforward. You need to know your state's laws.
Absolutely. Each state is independent of each other when it comes to how they're going to divide up your assets. And even if you've, recently moved from one state to another and you just had your will done in that previous state, you want to sit down with an attorney and make sure that that will, will still work in your current state.
hmm
So I always tell people make sure every 7 to 10 years, that you go back and you have those reviewed. Anytime you have a life-changing event, moving from one state to another, having a wedding, having another child, a grandchild, making sure that you're updating, that will.
hmm And next, you suggest make sure that all your assets are covered.
Absolutely. So, one of the first things that we always tell people is if you can name a beneficiary on an asset, go ahead and do it. Whether that's with a retirement account, an investment account, a checking account, savings account, anything with the bank. Name an asset, name a transfer on death, name a payable on death on that asset, whether it's your house, your cars, whatever it is, because anytime you name that beneficiary, it's going to supersede anything that's said in a will or a trust.
hmm
But if you forget to name that beneficiary, now all of a sudden you're falling back to, that will. And whatever it stipulates inside of the will, is how those assets are going to be divided up.
hmm And last, you say don't delay. A lot of us, though, do hesitate because this can bring up some really complex family dynamics.
Yeah, these usually are not fun conversations to have.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to think about their death. Nobody wants to think about their spouse's death or anybody else. So it is a very tough situation. But we know that two things are true, taxes and death in
Yep.
this life. And, with death, we've got to be able to divide up those assets so that everybody's protected. And we have the final say written down of what's going to happen. A
hmm
simple handshake anymore just doesn't get it done in the court of law. So we need to make sure we have it all written down.
So important and straightforward. Nick, if somebody has questions about setting up that will or an estate plan, what's the best way to reach you?
Absolutely. They can give us a call at 937-498-1128, or they can go to our website and schedule an appointment with us at iconberryretirement.com.
All right. Nick, thank you.
Thanks, Erin.